Domestic Coder. Thank you for inviting me on today to talk about Unity, and in particular the Unity Asset Store. I interview asset publishers, programmers, artists, musicians and game developers over on my Twitch and YouTube channel, and also over on YouTube I've reviewed over 100 different assets as well. Been very fortunate to get to play with lots of different assets so that people at home can see what they're like before they spend their hard-earned cash. Talking about spending hard-earned cash, I have to hide the amount of assets I purchased over the years just in case I get in trouble at home, because many times it turns out that we buy a lot more than we actually use, but that's not necessarily a bad thing when the asset store can help speed up your development for your own little projects at home, so you don't have to spend time worrying about some of the basics and you can focus on that core unique functionality of your game that makes it special. What is Unity, I hear you asking? Actually, I don't hear anyone asking that, but just in case, what is Unity? It's a game engine to help you make 2D or 3D games, or even text-based games. You can make anything. Your imagination is your only limit. You can code in C# or grab something like Bolt, which is a visual scripting tool for Unity, and you don't even need to know how to code. You can just drag and drop and away you go. One of the nice things about things like Bolt is that after you've dragged and dropped your visual scripting nodes everywhere, it will tell you what those were in code, so you can actually use it to teach you to code. That's right, it's a teaching tool, not just a game development tool. As an engine, Unity is fantastic, very versatile. AAA studios and indies have been using it to make mobile and desktop games for years. Games like Fall Guys have been getting a lot of news recently. Games like Skater XL with amazing Unity physics makes you feel like you're sitting on a skateboard. Actually, I tend to sit on a skateboard rather than standing on them because I'm scared of falling down. Kerbal Space Program, another classic using Unity. List goes on. Rust, you remember Rust and 7 Days to Die? Also Skidding City Skylines. Try to say that 10 times fast. I really didn't realise that was made with Unity until a few years ago. And then it just shocked me. It's like, wow, I could make that myself. Yes, you could. Cuphead, when that came out, it was all over the internet. 2D tastics. Subnautica, one of my favourite games. I keep coming back to it. It's so beautiful, and it's also testament that Unity can do good lighting if you just know what you're doing. The Unity Asset Store is actually a magical place, I would say, because there's a huge community of people from such diverse backgrounds. There's people that have been at AAA game dev studios. Actually, they still are at AAA studios and happen to be publishing assets. There's also people who have been at blockbuster movie studios who've worked on amazing movies such as The Hobbit and Planet of the Apes. You know who you are, Cinti Studios. Yes, you. We've also got people who've been working on the Disney epics like the Mandalorian TV series, who happen to also make assets over on the Unity Asset Store. So you are getting on the Asset Store a pedigree of potential AAA developers working on your project as well. That's what I like to say, is that the Asset Store is where somebody in their bedroom could be working on a game with people from Ubisoft or even Rockstar. You don't really get that, do you, when you go onto a forum and say, would anyone like to help me with my game? But when you go to the Asset Store, you can get some ready-made stuff that is AAA available. Talking about AAA, random asset, you're looking at some swords or gun animations. Well, they happen to be from Kerbal, and he worked on the animations for the Witcher game series. So that's pretty impressive too. You could have the animations in your game that are pretty much like the AAA animations that are in the Witcher game, all for a couple of quid on the Asset Store. It's scary at times just how much you can get, because you can get distracted. I have to say, there's many times that I find myself scrolling for hours, making a shopping list. It's window shopping at its worst, because you could very easily fall down that rabbit hole, never to return, because suddenly your cashier is full of items that, to be honest, you might never use. You just got overexcited because they look so beautiful. And that's how I got started making the reviews, actually. I just realized one day that I owned hundreds of assets that I've never even opened up in Unity, and I figured I've got to do something with them. You know what? I'm going to review them and put them online on YouTube to see if people would like them. Maybe it would help somebody else decide if they want to buy something or not. And that's how I got started making the reviews, how I got started making videos in general, it was for an asset called Ultimate Survival, and I was asked by the people who made it if I would help make some tutorials, and it kind of spiraled out of control from there. The asset store is huge. It's dangerously big. It's a wonderful collection of some fantastic assets and some pretty terrible ones too. And it can be a minefield to try and navigate. People ask me, where should you start? Well, I'm saying you should start on your own game idea. Prototype it. Minimal viable product. What's the least you need to do to get your idea on the screen for you to start mucking about and playing it? And there's a load of prototype packs out there that you can get. There's a load of free things that you can get on the asset store. There's a load of free assets on the asset store. If I just go and click on that free button down here, if I actually get rid of this on sale and down here click on that free button, you will see that you've got, oh my word, 2,500 free 3D assets alone, 293 free templates. So these are amazing stuff that you can be not even spending a penny on. There's a few people out there who do videos on YouTube that show you how you can get free assets and make a game using free assets only. That's a challenge in itself. Actually, that's going to be a fun challenge to do. So you don't have to spend money on the asset store. No, the opposite. You can pick up thousands of stuff for absolutely free. Not even a penny, not a cent. But if you are looking for really complex things, well, you can pick up something, like UFPS, which is a very detailed and mature FPS kit that then in itself has integration with a load of other assets as well. And there you could get an FPS kit integrated with a dialogue system and a quest system, and lo and behold, throw in some 3D artwork and you've made your own version of Fallout in your bedroom. It's fantastic. The possibilities and ideas that you can come up with are endless. And that's also the challenge, the pitfalls to avoid using Unity. It's an amazing engine that over the years has built up a fantastic community and an ecosystem within it to help you get your indie game out there. Not just indie game. I know of proper game studios that are making use of Unity and the asset store to get their games out there. But fundamentally, I would say the asset store is aimed towards the indie market. And sad truth is that 90% of the sales of the asset store don't lead to a game. That also is a good thing, because it means like if you've bought an asset and there's hundreds of other people have bought that same asset, doesn't mean they necessarily will make a game with that asset. And to be honest, that's the only negative argument I've ever heard about the Unity asset store. That, well, if you buy some art from the asset store, then everyone's going to know that you got it from the asset store and it won't be unique to your game. Now, there is an argument to that, because if you buy some Cinti zombies, for example, and you look at those and somebody else buys the Cinti zombies, if you both don't touch it and you use it as is, then obviously they're going to look identical. But also the argument is that the assets you buy on the asset store are never always meant to be left as is. You buy them and then you tailor them to your game, to your own need. That's unique to your game experience. You can just buy them and just leave them as is and away you go, but then don't start complaining if somebody has got exactly the same model in their game. Animation's less of an issue. Most people wouldn't even notice that an animation's the same. We have had people come on stream, Mr. Miner is able to recognize Robot Kyle's animations within a second because he's so used to seeing them. But generally, an animation is an animation. Music and sound is sound. Well, a model is far easier to recognize. But when you're running around in your game and a dragon is eating your face, are you able to recognize exactly where that dragon came from? I doubt it. AAA studios have been buying art assets from places like Megascans for years, and you get similar quality, if not better in some cases, highly optimized for games on the asset store, like the Castle Valley pack, Castle Valley collection, to give it its correct name, from Goat O'Grammetry. I constantly get his name wrong. Seriously, it was AAA when I played about with this pack. It looked phenomenal, and that's because they go out there and they take the pictures themselves, and then they put it in the engine and they make sure that the frame rate is good and that it works and it's performant for you. Because what's the point of buying something if you can't use it? The other great thing about the asset store is how easy it is to find assets from completely different artists and publishers that actually match so well. They seamlessly look like they belong together in the same scene, which is critical importance. You need to make sure when you're buying something, will it even fit in to the rest of the assets and artwork that you have? And what tends to happen is that if you start getting your own custom artwork made, it has to also fit in with that. So before you get started, pick a theme, pick a level of quality that you want to stick at, and make sure that everything you do get meets that same level of quality. It can be really difficult at times to find stuff that can fit well. If you look at something like the medieval village from Astrofish, it is beyond what I say is AAA. Obviously, because of the pedigree of Astrofish games coming from the AAA game industry, coming on to the asset store, you can see the quality and the experience in their work. So you need to find other assets that also match, or you just sit back and wait for those artists to build a larger portfolio on the asset store. Sometimes when things are so beautiful, like the medieval village from Astrofish, well, even if you're not making a medieval game, you feel tempted to buy it. So make sure that you put a cap on what you're doing. If you see a sale on at the moment, make yourself have a limit, as though you're going gambling down at the bookies, or the casino. Put a cap on your spending. You're not going to go above a certain amount. And don't always go for nice, bright and shinies as well. Sometimes you can even easily overlook simple things like you need audio and sound effects. You might need icons, 2D graphics in your game. If you go down and you see, let's put the cell back on and pop down into 2D, you would see that in the GUI, the GUI and the textures and materials section, even in the cell at the moment, some things that you might even think about, the UI for your game. It's easy to load it up in like your favorite graphics editor like Photoshop or MS Paint, wink wink, MS Paint, how you doing, and make it yourself. Sometimes it's even easier just to buy something or get a load of the free UIs that you can on the asset store and then just edit it to your heart's content. That's kind of like the process I do. I grab a free one, see how they did it, and then try to replicate it myself. Audio, a little bit harder unless you really know what you're doing or you've got a good microphone at home and you know how to make special effects sounds noise, like you're a Foley artist. It's crinkling a packet of crisps to pretend to be thunder. It's not really the same. And the fun thing about the asset store is you don't need to be an amazing Foley artist, because people like Game Master Audio, who have worked on Death Stranding and Metal Gear Solid, I've got their audio assets available on the asset store, and it's not just them. Quantum Theory was over at Ubisoft and worked on the Far Cry 4 and Ghost Recon game series, was one of the leading art directors over at Ubisoft, and is now selling his work over on the Unity asset store. People like these, and when you hear stories about people like these, it really does open your eyes that the asset store is enticing proper quality work from established artists and programmers and musicians over to the asset store. And why not? Because the asset store is a great place for them to sell their work and also get their name out. You wouldn't really know a lot of these artists by name if you just looked at a game. You wouldn't know, oh, Peter made that art in Far Cry 4. But if you pop over to the asset store, you can see exactly the quality of his work alone on his asset. And it's also a great way for people who want to get started in the game industry to show the quality of their work, their portfolio. It's actually, I would say, one of the best ways that you could get started in the game industry is build up your portfolio on the Unity asset store. Selling your assets on the asset store is not only a great way to make money, it's also a great way to get experience and knowledge, because you've got a whole army of people out there who are ready to buy your work. Or if you're giving it away for free, even better. You're getting people testing your work and seeing, will it work in a game? Will it break? Are there performance issues? And asking questions you might not even have thought about. I was making an asset myself just the other day, and somebody asked me, would it work with WebGL? Hadn't even thought about it until somebody mentioned it. And you don't have to be qualified artists and programmers. The asset store is full of students and kids in their bedrooms learning on the job, making assets on the asset store. And you can see them, how the first assets they make are a certain quality, and then over years the newer assets that they're making getting better and better until they get to a point where it's a portfolio good enough to get a job in itself. And sometimes you think, wow, do they even need to go to university when they're learning on the job so well? It's a dangerous argument, that one. And it's one I've actually had with my wife recently, where she's saying that nowadays she wouldn't even push for our children to go to university if they were able to get an apprenticeship or learn off their own back. And the asset store, to me, I think it's a great apprenticeship program, because there's a load of resources out there for you to learn. But it's even better, there's a community that once you've joined can help you improve and get better skills. And the more I experience the asset store, the more students I meet who are out there making assets. And it's a fantastic place for them to be working, because you get an income, but at the same time, you're learning things that otherwise you wouldn't. Like making an asset and making sure it works on a mobile. Well, how can you test it on 50 different mobiles when you don't have them? If you sold something on the asset store, you're getting feedback from clients all over the world using all manner of devices. One of the most common questions I get for people who want to sell assets on the asset store is, what type of asset should I make to make the most money? Well, I wish I could answer that question and then I'll be rich. But to be honest, all of the hundreds of publishers I've spoken to, a lot of artists are jealous of the programmers, and a lot of programmers are jealous of the artists. I'm yet to find somebody who's got the silver bullet, whose name doesn't happen to be Cinti Studios. Now, if you've got a great artistic skill, then make your artistic assets out there. If you're a great programmer, make your programming. If even better, you've got a friend, team up. Then make great artwork with great coding. These amazing kits that I've seen on the asset store. Another question I get asked a lot is, well, how much should I sell my asset for? Now, very simply, you could say, well, the cheaper it is, the more you will sell. The more expensive it is, the less you'll sell. However, it's not so obvious. If you're talking about art assets, and we exclude the shader render pipeline shenanigans that is going on at the moment with HDRP and people complaining, oh, I bought this wonderful 3D asset, but does it work with HDRP? And then every few weeks, Unity decides to tweak something and then it breaks. If we ignore that entire conversation, when you've sold an art asset, you don't generally have a lot of ongoing support. So really, if you're selling your stuff cheaply, then you're expecting, oh, I'm gonna sell loads of it and then I'll be really rich. But it also has an effect. If you sell it very cheaply, people tend to feel like, okay, your stuff is cheap. I know it could go crazy, but it doesn't look cheap. Well, I know, but it gets the feeling my stuff is cheap. If you look at people like Cinti, when they start charging $300 for their packs, $300, and they've got 1,800 detailed prefabs in that pack. That's a price where you go, wow, $300, that's very expensive, but there's a load of stuff in this pack, and therefore this price stuff looks good quality. So at $300, I'm feeling like this is a high quality product. Now, if I look at something that's also very good, and we go down here to, let's find something cheaper but still a high quality, Il Ranch. Il Ranch does some really good quality stuff, I have to say, but every now and again puts his price down to $5. Now immediately you'll be like, well, just how good is it? It's $5. It can't be that good if it's $5. However, it is. It's good. There are some issues with some of the assets I said earlier, like some are great, some not so great, some over rely on post processing. In which case, when you are mixing it with your own assets, you could find it difficult for them to match the feel exactly. And when it's $5, you start to question just how good is it? Now, at no point am I saying because an asset is priced low that its quality is low. No, absolutely not. What I am saying is that you ask the question, because why is it so cheap? You find yourself doing something when you see a bargain. Why is it so cheap? Sometimes you worry that something might be too good to be true. When you're selling your assets at, say, $350 as opposed to $35, well, you obviously only have to sell 10 of them at $350 to get the same amount of money back that you would be getting if you sold at 100 of them at $35. You could be saying that it's easier to sell 10 than it is to sell 100. Well, I can't answer that, really. If I could, I'll be selling a load of stuff on the asset store. What I can tell you is that if you sold only 10 things, you only have to support 10 clients as opposed to supporting 100 clients. So even if they were asking a few questions, then you basically have got a lot less support. But then the other argument is that if you've got 100 happy customers, maybe they go off and they tell their friends, then that's actually a lot more people knowing about your assets. The other argument, again, see, there's lots of arguments to this one, that if you're selling your stuff to 100 people and you're selling more than one asset, there's a higher chance that some of those people from the 100 would come back and buy some of your other assets. I can't answer the question of how much you should be selling your assets for. If I could, I would play the lottery. What I do know is that whatever price you're selling it at, don't sell it too cheap, or you would be seen as being cheap. Find a good sweet spot to sell it that you feel confident that reflects the quality of your work. At the same time, is going to encourage the amount of people that you want to be buying your assets. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who aren't going to make any sales on the asset store. And we know that because, as we can see, there are over 36,000 3D assets alone on the asset store. There's 2,600 templates. There's over 9,000 tools, over 6,000 audios. There's a lot of stuff out there for people to be looking and finding assets on the asset store. And it's very difficult that people getting exposure on the asset store too. Unfortunately, not everyone gets included in these massive sales, and the sales are a great way to get exposure on the asset store. Another way to get good exposure is the more people who buy your asset, the more people that review your asset, the higher up you'll go on the page rankings. But if no one's buying your stuff or reviewing your stuff, then you're not going to get that exposure. It's a chicken and the egg situation. It's very difficult. Some people I know have spent months updating and maintaining their assets for their existing clients, not getting many new clients, and therefore you're effectively working for free because Unity doesn't support a kind of subscription-based model for your customers. If you're selling an asset that people are buying and you want to charge them $5 a month for like a subscription fee, so to be getting update and support, well, Unity doesn't support that. So how can you be offering an ongoing level quality of service if you're not getting paid for it? And that's why a lot of people are constantly making newer and more assets so they can get recurring revenue on the asset store in the form of new asset. It's difficult. I have to say, it's very difficult. If you're doing it as like a hobby in the background, it's not your main source of income, it's a lot less stressful, I have to say. And a lot of people that I speak to who just do it as a passive income, they're the ones who've got the most comfortable, relaxed life on the asset store because they don't have to worry about it. Fortunately, there's a lot of people out there who are in certain countries that the asset store revenue is a large amount compared to their cost of living, and therefore it's their main source of income. And the asset store, at that point, it becomes a day job, and you worry about keeping your customer base happy. And I can appreciate it. It gets a bit worrying that at one point I'm telling you it's a great place to make a living on the asset store. It's a great place that if you expose yourself on the asset store, expose yourself in a way that won't get you arrested, but you expose yourself on the asset store, get your portfolio out there. It's a great way to have a passive income. It's a great way to get feedback from people, find different issues and bugs with your work that you probably would never have found out, and learn new skills. It's fantastic. It's a great place to have an art portfolio out there that you can show people at a studio that you might want to get a job. Go, yeah, check out the asset store and you can see my work. It's a great way for them to see, oh, look how many clients you had buying your work. Great. It's a great advertisement if it works. And if it doesn't, well, just don't let it get to you. As with anything in life, don't let the knocks keep you back. Just keep on going, keep that motivation up, keep on trying, do it for the fun, do it for the love, and you're always going to enjoy going to work. I get a lot of people asking, if I buy assets from the asset store, will it be recognizable that I've just purchased somebody else's artwork and put it in my game? Is everyone using the same artwork? What's a good example of a game on Steam that's used assets effectively? Now, House Flipper is a great one. Okay, it's got the word flipper in the title. Don't let that put you off, because you've got furniture and houses, modular houses, pre-made houses, textures, artwork that you can throw into a game like House Flipper and it still feels unique. I don't think they'll ever tire of DLCs, because you could just keep on buying assets from the asset store and put them into the game, and people can keep buying different bits of furniture. And actually, a good example of these kind of games is when you get money coming in and success from your game, you could start using that to put custom artwork or sound in your game. You're not always restricted, obviously, once you've made a game, that it will stay as it is. Gone are the days where games were only available on a cassette or floppy disk. You can release a game now on Steam and quickly update it. A good pitfall to avoid when using assets is make sure your artwork matches. A good example is we see here at Quartermaster on the video that the main characters have got mouths, nose, eyes, but then all of a sudden we see a load of models without any of their faces, the classic Sinti style. Now, this game is showing you there's a difference between the scientists and the plebs in the background. These guys have come up with a clever way to visually show you that the main characters look one way and the others look a different way. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt on that one. This free-to-play game, The Walking Zombie 2, is a beautiful example of, yes, you can use assets off the asset store like City Studios, Apocalypse Pack, and still make a unique and fun game, especially if you're adding mouths yourself on the Sinti models. See, he was sucking on a lollipop there. This game pretty much is the Sinti models, levels here, and a load of single player fun on the desktop and on a mobile. A lot of reviews, over 5,000 positive reviews. It's got to be fun. Now, how much of that is thrown together with another asset? I'm going to say that the FPS part of it is probably using another kit off the asset store along with the Sinti's artwork. But then, still, there's a load of custom functionality in there that makes it unique and fun on their own, as well as this upgrade system. And hey, they've put some in-game purchases as well to make some money on the side. Well, you can be using the asset store to make great games. Another great example is Phasmaphobia that came out on Steam recently. One person can edit games, making it in his bedroom, probably in his bedroom, that took advantage of the asset store for the artwork and also sound and music in the game. However, the foundation of this game is made by himself, his own two little hands, programming away for years to make this game come to fruition. But why reinvent the wheel when you can buy a load of assets from the asset store? Now, you wouldn't really be able to tell that, would you, by looking at it? But who cares? Who cares, even if you could? Because look at this, over 87,000 overwhelmingly positive reviews over on Steam. It's ridiculous how successful this game is. And there's a load of other games, similar stories, that people in their bedrooms that otherwise wouldn't be able to make their games. So next time you're thinking of starting a new project, then why not pop over to the Unity Asset Store. Remember to click that magic free button first. Find if there's something out there that suits your purpose to help you build a proof of concept, to try and get that idea that you've written down on a piece of paper inside your head out onto the screen. And if you do need that extra bit of help, then maybe there might be a paid asset out there for you. But always remember, only buy what you think you might actually use. When you have that little voice in the back of your head saying, it looks really, really pretty, but I'm never going to use it, avoid it. Tell a friend about it maybe, or just enjoy looking at the pictures. But generally, the Unity Asset Store is a great place to give you a great head start and making that idea that you've come up with while floating about in the bathtub an amazing reality that could possibly one day make you a millionaire. And I interview wonderful people who make them, as well as game developers as well, over my Twitch channel.
Awesome.
There we go.
There we go.
And I can see some of them in the chat as well. Some amazing famous faces.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody should be able to hear us now. Please let us know in chat if you can't. And if anybody has any questions specifically, I know there was just general, muting all around. You know how it goes.
That's what happens every week on my channel. Don't worry about it.
I feel like that's just how things are going with technology these days. Is everybody's just accidentally on mute.
I once went about half an hour streaming and I was on mute and nobody told me.
Oh, seriously?
They were just enjoying the gameplay. I was playing a game and they were just enjoying the silence.
Yeah, chat apparently thinks that you've done this all the time. You just do that all the time. So they're used to it, I think, by this point. But let's dive into some of the questions that I know some of us have about the asset store, just the assets available and everything. That was a really cool tour that you took us through, for sure. And so, I mean, are there any other tools that you would use in conjunction when customizing model assets to make your versions look more unique, or to add a bit of different, extra flair or flavor to things as you're building and creating? Or what would you recommend?
I would recommend things that I don't use.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I used to, many years ago when I was younger and had far more patience, I used to do 3D modeling and animation. And since then, wonderful free tool came out called Blender. And everyone in chat who sits there playing about doing artwork, they probably has already used it because it's free. It's wonderful. It used to be god awful to use because the UI was terrible, but they've made it nice now. So if you have the patience, you can just load up a model, because that's the other great thing about Unity, is that they give you these 3D files that you can just load up into a tool like Blender and then modify. For example, like those Cinti Studios low polygon looking artwork, lots of people, when they buy them, they're always just loading them up and then just tweaking them, modifying them to their needs, to either even just chop heads off to make them customizable. So you end up getting a model, go, I like his head, but I like the other person's body. Well, you load up in a tool like Blender and you can swap them around. Because I'm lazy, I just end up changing textures. So
Okay.
I would load up Photoshop or even Paint, and I would change the textures of them.
Okay. Awesome. So it makes it a little less like Frankenstein and just changing a different aspect of it. That's cool.
Yeah, and that's the fun thing about textures, is that you can completely change the look of something just by giving it a new lick of paint.
That's cool. That's awesome. Handling various controller inputs is notoriously difficult. Do you have any recommended assets for making that easier?
So it cut off just the first part of the question. So all I got was recommended things for making it easier. So apologies for that.
So handling various controller inputs is notoriously difficult. Do you have any recommended assets for making that easier?
Oh, yes. Actually, that's a fun one. Just before I answer that one, Terry is just saying Substance Painter. And I was going to mention Substance Painter for modifying textures.
Okay.
Because there's a person in chat, Sengoku, who's typing away there. He recently purchased an asset that the models were fantastic, but he wasn't happy at all with the textures. And he went into Substance Painter. He's Sengoku by himself in his bedroom, and he made a load of funky looking textures using Substance Painter, which is great because it's a tool for making these PBR textures. And whereas previously you would have to really know what you're doing, now you can just throw a load of things together and it will do it pretty much for you. It makes it look like you're a proper professional. And he was able to completely change the look of this asset, and even, I would say, improve it drastically from what he purchased. I did that. Wow. Yes, you did, Sengoku. It's the carton pack I'm talking about. Yes, I did. So there you go. So couple of things: some Substance Painter and Blender, and you can buy an asset for say 20 quid, and then turn it into 50 different assets if you have the patience to do it. Regarding inputs, there's a load of different paid ones on the asset store, mainly because Unity's built-in input system used to be like pretty awful. It had the potential to be wonderful, but it was always a pain in the bum to use it. So people would go out and make these their own like middleware kind of software, you could call it, where it was still using Unity's input system, but was having their own magic on top of it. And they were great. And then Unity decided to go, oh, you know what? You're right. Our input system's very outdated, and it was made in the Stone Age, back before even electricity was around. So they changed it, and they've made it a new input system. And the new input system actually is really good. It's easy to use. When I say easy to use, I loaded up the other day and I completely forgot how to use it. And I had even done a tutorial of it on YouTube, like how to get started. And then I had to go back and watch my own video to remind myself how to use it, which was fantastic.
It's a good thing you did that then.
It's a very good thing I did that. That's the reason why I do the interviews. I do the interviews solely so that I can learn how to use something, and then I refer to the videos back to myself. It just happens to be a load of other people in the same room watching me as I'm talking to someone. It's like I've invited a load of people into my bedroom while I've had a special one-on-one session with a programmer, which I'm glad that came out better than
I was going to say we might need to switch for this going, but no, that's really cool though. But it's good that it still helps you out as well as everybody else.
It's really important because my memory is really bad. It's that bad that I even forgot that I wrote my own input system for Unity. And in chat, they reminded, Mum is what I called it. I called my input system Mum, Messi's Ultimate Input Manager. And all it does, it basically makes using the Unity's input system easier to use. Because say if you want to use a PlayStation controller or an Xbox controller, then you have to kind of like work out what all of the key maps are on, the button mapping and everything is. And that's what a lot of these third-party stuff is great for. So my one pretty much does that for you, like uses presets, and then it has like some extra events things tied onto it, so that it makes your life easier when you're using the input system. But then, as with everything that I do, 5 minutes afterwards, I realized it was completely pointless because the new Unity input system that they've made themselves does all of that for you. So, as I said earlier, it's always good just to check the free stuff out before you either make it yourself or you buy somebody else's. Because a lot of times it turns out what you want might already exist for free, or in this case, is already provided for free by Unity.
Yeah, because you're showcasing even in the look through the store of just all the different how many free assets there are available.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Like you ask the question, why do people give things away for free when you see that? It's like, you're giving that for free? Why? Are you mad?
Do you have any idea why? Like, actual question, do you have any idea why anybody gives anything away for free? No?
Why? It's a good exposure. Somebody was I was reviewing one today. It's an opera pack, a destroyed opera pack. And he also gives away a katana sword, a samurai sword. And it's really beautiful, like a AAA quality sword. And in his FAQ at the bottom of his asset store page, he says, why is this for free? And the answer he writes is because he wants to show the quality of his work, so that when you do buy his £90 pack, you already know that what the quality is going to be like. So you're not going to go, oh, I'm not happy, I want my money back, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that was just it. With at least with free, you're not spending money, and if the quality isn't there, then you're not necessarily losing out. But for the assets that you are purchasing, that you are spending money on, how do you ensure the quality? Is there a way? Do you have
Uh,
a tactic or anything with that?
well, I would say look at the reviews to
Okay.
see if something's good or not. But that's the same thing I was going to say. Like people kind of misuse the review system as well. So, and there's a lot of people in chat who are asset store publishers. I can see that as soon as I mention this, they will be screaming at their monitors saying, "Yes, yes, you're right." If I was selling an asset, for example, and it was perfect in every way, but for some reason your computer was on fire, you would give a 1-star review saying, I bought this asset, but my computer caught fire.
It
And
doesn't necessarily correlate,
yeah,
but yeah.
exactly. And it happens. Like many times, I bought this asset, I couldn't even download it. 1 star. Well, hello?
Yeah.
Did I make the internet in your house? No. Did
Yeah.
I upload it to Unity? No. Like, do I control the internet? So um, that happens a lot. There's a huge amount. Thankfully now Unity, I think the bigger Unity gets, the more people they employ to help manage this kind of stuff. They curate the asset store, and they're going through removing those kind of reviews. But then a lot of people are posting reviews basically saying, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or doesn't suit my purpose, and they would use it as a way of trying to get a refund.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of ruins the scoring mechanism. So
Yeah.
rather than looking at the overall score of an asset, I don't say, like, if it's 4 stars, 3 stars, or 5 stars, don't take that at face value. Scroll through it to see what comments people have written, and if it's a paid asset and it's an art asset, you could ask for a demo. And a lot of people I've spoken to don't actually have a demo that's available to download on the asset store page. I've contacted them, and they've given like an executable file that you can run, and it's a playable demo to show what the asset actually looks like.
Mm.
If it's like £5 or £10, then kind of you're less worried about is it going to be bad or not.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've bought 50 things at £5 or £10, it adds up.
Oh yeah, that would add up after time. Awesome. When it comes to the actual for people who sell assets through the store, do you sell out assets through the store, or you just review them at this point?
Um, I'm too much of a coward
Okay.
because do you remember that old saying, those who can't do teach,
Yeah.
and those who can't teach, they become reviewers.
Age old story. Yeah. No, I've heard
Yeah.
very, very old
So
adage there.
that's why there's a lot of people who are out there eating food in restaurants, pretending that they know what they're talking about, yet they can't even make scrambled egg.
Yeah.
That's much like myself.
All right. Well,
So I've actually made a few things to try and get on the asset store,
mhm.
but I suffer from the thing that I tell people to avoid, and that's scope creep.
Okay.
So I start a project with a defined scope, even draw it out, and I plan it, a very clear plan of, this is my asset, this is the functionality and this is the problem it's set to solve. Because if you're making an asset, there's a problem that you need to solve. So what is the problem you need to solve? That's the problem. All right, I'm going to focus on solving that and nothing else. And as you get along that way, you start to find other problems. You go, oh, I didn't think about that's another problem. I should try solving that problem too. And then you start solving 3 or 4 problems, and then you get to your final problem that you solved it, and you go, oh, great, I did it. And then somebody else reviews, like, would you like to test out my asset? Great, what does it solves this problem. Oh, that's fantastic. This is a problem I've always had. Brilliant. Have you thought about this problem? No. What about that problem? I haven't thought about that one either. Well, wouldn't it be great if you solved those too? Now, 6 months later, you still haven't even finished the first thing that you started on.
That's fair.
And that's actually quite common on the when I speak to asset developers, that they go, well, I released this version because I need to get it out there. I just need to stop what I'm doing and get it out there. And there you go. Your Donald's Games says, I'm the king of scope creep in chat.
Yeah.
And that's the scope creep is real, says Dungeon Studio. And that's the problem. And the problem with scope creep is that you want to please people.
Mm-hmm.
And that reverts back to, you should actually be like your old school teacher who didn't care about pleasing anyone. All they cared about was getting out of the door at the end of the day and meeting that deadline. So that's, be strict. Exactly like Kitty's saying in chat, just ship it.
Yeah.
Just ship it. It's very dangerous. It's hard to say that one without sounding rude if you say it too fast.
Oh, goodness. All right. I think I believe you mentioning that there were pros and cons to selling as well in the asset store. Are there any other, aside scope creep, is there any other ones that come to mind? Or
Well, selling on the asset store is great to get. You've got this marketplace where you upload it and you go to sleep. You wake up in the morning and you're a millionaire because obviously it's promoted your asset to its entire database of clients. So people scroll to the bottom of the page of the asset store and they fill in their email address and they go, add me to a mailing list. So as an asset seller, you're thinking, well, Unity are taking their 30%, so as such, I'm going to get this great exposure that you're not going to get elsewhere, which in some ways is true. If you're lucky enough to get on the front page, you're lucky enough to get listed in a sale, then you're going to get great exposure that you would never get elsewhere, because these are people who are buying your asset specifically for the engine of which that marketplace is focused on selling. You can't get better than that. Really. It's like they've invited you into a house party and it turned out to be a Tupperware party and you're the only one who's bought any Tupperware to sell. It's a great time to live. But it turns out the reality is that maybe they're taking their 30% and you're never going to get any exposure because, like I mentioned earlier, people need to review you to get up the rankings. If they can't find you, they can't buy you, and then they can't buy you and they can't review you, and then you can't get up the rankings. So you're constantly falling down and down the pages, and then you're just in the gutter, and then you wonder why nobody's buying your stuff. So that's the great thing about the store, and that's also the bad thing about the store. But the good news is that Unity actually said that they're actively trying to improve and offer more services and help. And if you were to sell it directly, there you go, Chris is saying chat, sell it directly, you get more money. Exactly. You sell it directly, you get more money. Now, the tricky thing is you're not allowed to sell it for more money, because when you're selling on the asset store, you're tied in at this is the price that you're selling. So you can't sell it cheaper elsewhere. I think you can sell it for more money elsewhere, but you can't sell it for cheaper elsewhere. Okay. Maybe. I can't remember. Somebody who's in the chat, who's an asset store publisher, would tell me if that's right or not. I'm not too sure Unity would mind you charging more elsewhere if it's driving more traffic to their own store, but they don't want to be undercut by a competitor, which makes perfect sense.
Completely. I'm sure somebody's going to chime in and either affirm this or correct us at some point. Same problem you have releasing games on mobile or Steam. If you're going for asset store because you think it'll be easier and you don't have to do as much marketing, then it's probably not going to work.
Yeah.
Selling directly, more manual marketing. There's a lot more that comes from selling directly as opposed to the store, which will do some amount of marketing for you at least, which seems to be the general consensus.
The other nice thing about selling it on the store is they host it for you.
Yeah. Which is also a bad bet.
That's a lot of bandwidth for saving.
Awesome. Chat, if you guys have any questions that you are dying to ask, please do so now. We'll probably keep this going for another 10 or so minutes.
I'm hoping nobody asks what my favorite asset is.
Okay, but now I almost want to ask that. For those of you who have been asking, yes, the stream will be saved. Everything gets uploaded to our YouTube channel. It'll be up within a couple of days, hopefully. Tomorrow if I have time, but yes, that's the plan. Do you actually know the answer to if we ask you what your favorite asset is?
My favorite asset is I'm gonna say Ultimate Survival 2. Yes, the Undernauts games. It's Ultimate Survival 2. It's an asset that doesn't exist. The reason he's saying that is that there was an asset called Ultimate Survival in which I started doing tutorials for. How I started, as I was saying in the video earlier, that it's a weird story. Is that I used to help other artists and programmers sell their work to studios and independent game developers. So pretty much it was like the asset store before the asset store existed, but more of a like word of mouth kind of thing. And when I started playing at Unity, I was like, oh, I'm gonna just see who's out there on the Unity forums and who's freelance artists and programmers and stuff. And I was talking to a person about a project, and it didn't really come off, but it was good to have a chat with them, and left it at that. And then when this asset was being developed, Ultimate Survival, I reached out to the person. So that looks like a really great asset. I've been looking for something similar. When is it going to be ready? And they were like, do you have Skype or something to chat to? And they gave me the Skype address. Yeah. And I started chatting, and I said, oh my God, it's you. And he went, oh, it's you. And I said, oh, you didn't know that was yours? And he said, I didn't know you were interested in that. It's kind of like that. It's like a song where you've answered a lonely hearts column in the paper, and you find out it's your spouse, and they like pina coladas.
It's the pina colada. Yeah, no, that one. I can't remember the real name of that song, but it's not the pina colada song, but it is the pina colada song. Yes.
So it was a pina colada moment.
Yes.
And that's kind of like got me making videos, because it just ended up. I said, because would you help me make some tutorials? And I was drunk at the time, and I said yes, why not? And it kind of spiraled out of that. So then I started making. Basically, I was like, this is really good, but it's very limited in its scope of what it can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I started customizing it and making my own code to sit on top of it. And that's when that was the most I'd ever edited somebody else's asset at that point.
Okay.
And I learned a valuable lesson, which was, don't edit the core code of an asset, because when they do an update, you lose everything you've done.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically go, I've made a whole new like ammo system, or I've made this harvesting system, or I've turned everyone into spaghetti. That is brilliant. And then they do an update, and all your spaghetti's gone. And you go, where did my spaghetti go? So you learn a valuable lesson of keep your code nice and separate from the asset that you're playing with. And that's why I start with every project, I put like a folder, it's _messy folder where I save everything in. And then you kind of butcher their code, and you make a version of a script that inherits theirs. It's like a derivative. It's like when you're not trading on the stock market the real stock, you're trading a fake stock version of it. It's the exact kind of thing. You're coding a fake page of the original one. So you could completely butcher that page, and it'll be fine. And then when he does an update, you hope that your butchery still works. And if it doesn't, nothing lost, because your code is still there.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to learn that. And these are like things like somebody was asking me the other day, how do you work with 50 different assets and make them work together? Well, make your code as though it's another asset, and you're integrating with those assets. So you yourself, then because when you look at Unity, all the folders called assets, and all of the files in it are in the asset folder. So treat your own work like an asset in the asset folder. And then, the other cool thing is, when you finish that project, you've got, like I've got, your own input system that you could reuse easily in another project, because you can just take it out and drop it in another one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, Max is saying, what asset types do you wish to see more or less of in the future? Code asset, audio, art, etc. I'm a little bit spoilt for choice on art assets, because art assets, there's so many great artists out there, like you mentioned earlier in chat, and it's like the really shiny sweets in the shop. I see it, it's bright colors, it smells delicious, and I just navigate towards it like a moth to the flame.
And that's how you get a ton of assets on your card, and that's how the window shopping becomes too dangerous. Yes.
I'm really lucky that my wife's got a massive Steam game archive, and it balances out my asset archive.
Oh, there you go.
The difference is she plays her games, I don't even load up the assets. So the stuff that I'm kind of gearing towards more these days are like those little assets that solve a coding niche or a functionality niche that I don't have the time to work on. They're not necessarily a complete framework, because I don't want to throw out everything that I've done or rely on like loading up an entire massive framework, but small snippets of things, like a skill system or an input system or an inventory system that is light enough that it doesn't bloat all over the place, but it's still functional enough that it works and it allows me to edit it.
Awesome. Okay. All right.
I'm just reading up in the chat.
Oh, I know. The one that made me laugh is which asset do you hate the most? But I'm not sure.
Oh,
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 you
I
haven't.
tell you, there was an asset. There was a couple that I reviewed. I've only ever given a zero, a nil point, to one asset, and actually Tila and chat told me off for it. Um,
Okay.
I got, yeah, there was on the comment section, I think on YouTube,
Mhm.
and I got told off, like, you're being mean. This isn't worth zero. And it was 0 point because it was more of a frustration because
Okay.
I paid my money for an asset, and it hadn't been updated. It was an art asset. There were
Mhm.
still issues with it, and basically I felt like I couldn't use it. It wasn't usable in the real world. It looked okay enough,
Mhm.
um, but I was like, if I've paid 60-70 bucks for something and I can't use it,
Yeah.
then it gets nil point. Um, there was an asset that I reviewed, another asset that was so bad. I paid like 40 bucks or something. He reduced the price down to 5. I think he reduced it down to less than 5 before, when Unity used to allow you to put something like for £1.
Mhm.
Um, and the scale was that when you load it up, you were the size of an ant instead of the normal size, and all of the colors were psychedelic, and they weren't. It wasn't meant to be.
Oh.
Um, and it was so bad. I had a epileptic warning at the front of the video, which meant I wasn't allowed to have any monetization or
Yeah.
advertisement, because because advertisers don't want to start their video with an epileptic warning. You wonder why,
Eh,
but I
you know.
still didn't give it. I don't think I gave it less than 1 star. I don't think, because there was still something fun about it. A seizure while you're using an asset isn't is an accomplishment in itself. They should be proud of that.
Not ideal, but still did something. So I
Yeah,
mean,
it's unique.
very much so. My goodness. So maybe do one more question. Latest one that just came in. What do you think about the Unity Icon Collective?
Um, Unity Icon Collective. Oh, I haven't seen. Let me just quickly load that one up. I know of their Snaps collection,
Okay.
to which I would say, do not spend any money whatsoever. You're better off going in the street and paying somebody to punch you repeatedly in the face. So yes,
Okay.
don't do that. Let me go to the Unity Icon Collective to see. Um, Okay, oh no, that's them. That's them. That's
Okay.
that's
Exactly what you're thinking.
the snap. That's what they. Okay, so that basically, in theory, it was wonderful.
Mhm.
Why is it down to just one? Oh, 2 assets only. Okay, that's bizarre. Um, okay, I've gone to the Unity Icon Collective on the Asset Store, um, using my own affiliate links, obviously, and it's basically shown up two assets now. Buried Memories Volume 1 of Idrisil, that a lot of wonderful artists managed to enter a competition to make a similar kind of thing, and Buried Memories Volume. Now, that those two, Buried Memories, when I've actually got it in a humble bundle, didn't pay any money for it,
Mhm.
thankfully. Um, it looks really pretty. It's nice. Um, those ones look good. Um, it's when you're the problem with the Snap stuff is that you get a big warning from them that say, the HDRP artwork, because this is a new render pipeline from Unity, doesn't work with the latest version of HDRP. To which you're like, well, I'm buying a specific Unity made asset for
Mhm.
HDRP. How can it not work with the latest version of HDRP? That doesn't make sense to me. That is basically, was the big thing that just made me go into a raging inferno. The other
Yeah.
part of it was that this is a great idea. Unity basically going out there, getting fantastic artists and to get, or sound engineers or whatever, to get together and make these beautiful AAA packs for
Mhm.
people to have. Then they go and they're charging, $120 or $130 for these things, sometimes even more, sometimes less, sometimes more. And you're thinking, these are official Unity promoted Unity-driven assets, why not give them away for free?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you went to Unreal, they give away hundreds of dollars worth of free assets, thousands of, every month, but they've got their own collection of stuff that they've made themselves from Epic, and they give it away for free. It's a shame that Unity didn't go the same route, and also a lot of this stuff doesn't feel optimized. You load it up, it doesn't seem to work. The concept of it is great, like the sizing, a unified size for things, that they will snap together, and if people conform to that standard, then everyone's artwork and assets in the Unity asset store would meet the same scale, and it'll be brilliant. But the problem is, if only they're doing it, kind of defeats the purpose. And if they're charging you for it anyway, then you're never even going to experience it, because not that many people in their bedrooms, honestly, can afford $120.
Yeah.
For an art asset. It's sad, but there you go. It's this is why it's very dangerous to get me on to be talking about things, because whereas I love using Unity, and my wife tells me that it's a good thing to be doing this. I'm too honest. So I love Unity. I really do. It gives me a lot of passion, a lot of joy. Are they perfect? No, they're not perfect. No one's perfect. But what I do like about them is that they're trying, and I've actually complained to them to their face, or to their virtual face in lockdown, about the Unity snaps collection and things like that, and they're very receptive to the feedback. They want to hear people's comments. They want to have constructive criticism back at them, and that in itself gives me so much hope for the future of the Unity as a platform, and even the asset store, because all these asset publishers in chat, every single one of them I've spoken to love the asset store because they're on it, but all of them have had problems in the past. Yet Unity are there to try and listen, to make life easier for both the consumer and the seller.
Well, then that's just it. If you love something, it's not necessarily that you're bashing it or anything. You are being critical, and because you want it to be better, and that kind of love shows through, I think, very clearly in all of the conversations we've had so far today. But I think that's where we're actually going to wrap this up. Where can people find you if they want to listen to more of you talk about assets, listen to your reviews and whatnot?
They can usually find me hiding in the gutter with a bottle of brandy wrapped around in a brown paper bag. But
awesome.
If you're looking for me online, I will be over on orderws.twitch.tv/themessycoder, or youtube.com/themessycoder, or twitter.com/themessycoder, or anything.com/themessycoder.
You've been able to secure that everywhere?
In more places than you would imagine. Needless
awesome.
to say, there's a few Messy Coder places that I'm glad that nobody knows about.
Okay, it's the secret ones, the Where's Waldo. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for everything today. We look forward to hopefully doing this again sometime. This is great.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's really scary to be on the other side of the chair.
I was going to say, you're on the other side of the interview here. This is different.
I know. I'm making sure that I'm actually not drunk, and my microphone has not fallen down off my makeshift.
You're just lost in the woods. It's fine. You're good.
Yeah, exactly. With people in the chat saying he lives in the woods now. That's so true.
Obviously. Well, thank you, and thank you to everybody in chat. For anybody who missed any part of this, we'll be uploading it to YouTube in a couple of days. And thank you so much for being here. We'll take care.